Hi, I'm Maureen, and welcome back to Before an Audience, Tips and Tricks to Reading Your Writing in Public. We're going to just get started today here, and we're going to be talking about multiple voices. And it's not as hard as you think, so I'm going to show you lots of tips and tricks on how to do that. But first, I want you to think about the character, not just what they're saying, but the attitude with which they say it. That's going to make a big difference. So, facial expressions are important here. You can use hand gestures. You're in front of an audience, so don't be shy or afraid to use your hands or to reach out and explain something through the vision of a character. So if you're reading the other, which is a man reading a woman, or an adult reading a child, or a child reading an adult, or any sort of characters, dogs, cars, whatever might be talking in your story, facial expressions are good for that. And if you're a woman reading a man, you're going to pull your voice a little bit down into your throat. So it's right around here. And that kind of would be your male voice. And you could have a male look in your eye. Something. You're never going to hold this for very long, mind you, but something, a man talking. Or if you're a man and you need to speak a woman's voice, you're going to think about your voice going up through your nasal cavity and up through your head. So it goes up like this, and you're going that way. And then you have a little bit of a female face to go along with it. Something a little, or you could, depending on who the woman is. We've got 5 character voices in this piece, and we're going to go back and forth between the character voices and the narration. And I'm going to talk it through like I usually do so that you know where to stop and listen to what's going on. But we're even incorporating some of the things we've also done, beats and pauses, and the circling of words, and what we're going to accentuate and what we're not. And so we're going to be incorporating all those things along so that you get a chance to see how it all works together in one piece. The rattling engine of the old 1930 Plymouth seemed to grow louder with every chug up the dusty road. The 5 adults squished inside the automobile, shimmied and shook with every pothole in its path. The blistering sun overwhelmed the jalopy's weak radiator to the point that when they pulled up to the beach mansion, the engine cut with a bang. Now this is the first character voice. Oh, sweet Jesus, I hope we have arrived. Juliet cooed and slipped out the passenger side. Why couldn't we have borrowed a rag top? She asked for the umpteenth time. Now, you notice I use umpteenth time as a way to show the frustration with the number of times that she's talked, or that she's asked for a rag top. Moving on. Juliet was followed by the rest of the troupe, all weak and dehydrated from the long journey. It was nearly 100-mile distance between their theatrical home and the beachside mansion. I'll tell you, one more minute in that pressure cooker, and I surely would become Sunday dinner. Okay, so you get a sense. She exaggerates a lot of hyperbole out of Juliet. And she said, wiping her brow with a soggy kerchief. Now, you may want to wipe your brow, or you may want to make a movement, or you may not want to do anything. But I'm trying to give this, I'm including that because I want to give the audience a sense of where they are and exactly how hot it is. Okay? We're going to move on from there, and I'm going right back into my narrator voice here, which is my regular voice. The rolling hills of sand and dune brush looked barren, not at all like the promise they had been given. The acting troupe was offered the gift of $100,000 from a mysterious benefactor to perform for one evening. Oh, money was hard to come by these days, and couldn't be refused. Richard, standing in the open air and stretching his back wryly, responded to his wife. Now you're going to hear the first male voice. My dear, it's only Thursday. You'll be spoiled by Sunday. So you hear a little sparring between them. Mother, please. Now we have the youngest daughter here, Rosie. Mother, please. You can be such a sourpuss at times, Rosie said, crawling out of the back seat. Frank, now here's our fourth character, Frank pushed his long leg out of the side of the car and pulled his lanky young body to a standing stretch. I'm hungry. What's for grub? He said, looking to find an ally in the group. So now you've heard all four voices, and we're going to continue on hearing them, but you'll see I'm going to go from character voice just right away to narrator voice. And when you're rehearsing this, if you've never done it before, you want to just take your time. It's not a rush. You go through the voice, you go through the tagline if you're going to say it, and then you get right back to the narrative. Just take your time getting used to it. You'll speed up as you go. But you don't have to talk fast either. I mean, even when you're in front of an audience. We're here, albeit by invitation, but still, I would rather have thought we were meeting in a more modern estate, Richard noted. Richard's a grunt puss, you can tell that. Lucky, the ever-diligent worker, stage manager, and prop mistress, without speaking a word, without taking notice of the time or the heat, had already unloaded each of the cases, hat boxes, and shoe boxes from the trunk of the car. She'd lined up all the cases in the usual order. Richard stood staring at the heaps of baggage. Jesus, Juliet! Why must you always travel with so much luggage? He snarled. Darling, you know an actress of my stature must provide her own costumes. Who knows what character they might throw at me? A girl must be prepared. Richard lit a cigarette and stared at the decaying building. He wondered if this invitation might cost more in the end. Now, I say it like that, a little bit eerie, but that is my first line of foreshadowing. What actually is going to happen at this place, outside of them getting paid a monstrous amount of money for one show? So I take a moment, when I know I have foreshadowing, I take a moment to let that just unfold. The audience may or may not get it, and that's okay. That's the way you want it. You know as well as I'm back to Juliet again, by the way. You know as well as I, the shoes of an actress are the very foundation of her performance. I've only brought a small selection of Oxfords. Silly me. I thought great performances began with the written word. Daddy, now I just go from character to character. You hear that? Daddy, don't look so surprised. Mother's right this time. The way a woman moves on stage makes all the difference. And the shoes make it possible to maintain character all the way down to your tippy-tippy toes, Rosie said, smiling up at him. If you say so, sweetheart. You're worried about my shoe collection. We're back to Juliet. And the audience will get to know all the voices and they'll just go with you. You're worried about my shoe collection. You're the man who agreed to a command performance without ever seeing the script. Who's the fool, I ask you? Juliet said, fanning herself with an old program she had in her bag. Richard took a deep breath. He removed his hat and ran his fingers through his hair in controlled frustration. In case you've forgotten, my dear, we're in debt up to our earlobes. Jobs are not growing on trees in our neighborhood, he said, knocking on the 8-foot-tall wooden door. Juliet sighed and hissed. Oh, I do hate it when you call our profession a job. It's so uncouth. We are artistes. We are thespians. We are hungry, Frank blurted out. I'd like to eat sometime this week, Apple Blossom, he said, moving toward the shade provided by the house. He's right, Mother. We've had 3 stink bombs in a row. And besides, he's going to pay us a fortune, and we'll only have one person in the audience. What harm could there be? Good call, Rosie. It's not likely our benefactor will speak ill of us to the press. He would look a fool hiring lousy actors and spending good money on a flop show. If you say so, darlings. Just then, the door to the mansion flew open, and a ragtag major domo in an ill-fitting tuxedo stood at attendance. Now we've got voice number 5. "Command players, I presume?" he asked. "Indeed," Richard doffed his hat. "Let me introduce our company. Our very own Juliet, the grande dame of the company." Juliet bowed gracefully. "Our delightful ingenue, Rosie." She dropped in a wistful curtsy. "Our young male hero, Frank." He bowed. Handsome and dapper in his brown suit, without speaking, the major domo turned into the foyer and signaled for them to follow. Now it's going to change again. We're not outside anymore. We're not having the argument with the family. Now we're inside. So I would normally make a little pause here for it to just change the mood, because now they're standing inside this building. Once inside, they all stood gaping at the ornate foyer, with a tiered chandelier, a teakwood circular stairs, and hand-painted rose embossed wallpaper. "I'm Carlton, and I will be at your service for the entire weekend. The list of accommodations are provided," he said, handing the scroll to Richard. "Darling, I'm impressed," Juliet winked. Next, Carlton explained the rules of order for the house, and the timing of the meals and the first rehearsal. Then all members of the company were dispatched to freshen and unpack. Now this next part of the story is with Rosie. It's just Rosie, so it's all going to be read from her point of view. It's her internal monologue and her observations. So it's a little perky, it's a little friendly. Rosie was the first to find her room and exhilarated to do so. It was pink with feminine frills. Her luggage had been delivered by Lucky, and she immediately went to work unpacking and organizing. While she was carefully placing her makeup supplies on the dresser, she noticed an old photograph. She picked up the photograph. 5 people, 2 women, 2 men, and a baby held by one of the women. The woman holding the baby was also wearing a sparkling diamond necklace. Upon closer examination, she considered that this necklace was curiously like the necklace that had been in the family for years. Why was this woman wearing Rosie's family heirloom? Who was she? Who would have left the photograph here? Thank you. That's all for today. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. Please, if you're enjoying Before an Audience, tips and tricks to reading or writing in public, be sure to subscribe, because we have 4 more episodes to go. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.